If you could go back, would you do anything differently? That was a question I'd had in terms of thinking about this course, about being it's a life lessons course.
Yeah.
Thinking about, you know, your life lessons, if there was anything that has risen to the top, you know, if you had regrets, if you would do things differently.
No, because I was compensated very well, and I don't mean financially, for what I did. You can't, I mean, a fool or an uninformed person. Another friend of mine who was an agent said, only an idiot has no regrets. Well, you know, I'd rather be the idiot. You know, I mean, okay, when we came to having to record the second song of the Rolling Stones, and we had nothing to record, and we're in a rehearsal studio. It was actually a jazz guy, Ken Collier's jazz club in Great Newport Street. In the basement, I have one idea for them. It was a song by a guy called James Ray. It was a great unknown R&B record because a lot of the groups were taking all the obvious, like the Searchers had done Sweets for My Sweet, so the Coaster stuff was going, the Drifter stuff was going. And the Rolling Stones still didn't write yet. So I went, hey, we could do this if you got to make a fool of somebody. And somebody said, no, Andrew, Freddie and the Dreamers have just done it. Well, then I knew the end of the world was coming. And I didn't know what to contribute to the rehearsal and the search for another song. So I left. I went upstairs into the street. I turned right. I went to walk towards Leicester Square tube station. And getting out of a taxi, slightly tipsy, and therefore very clairvoyant, was John Lennon and Paul McCartney. And they said to me, because they were clairvoyant, like, Andy, what's wrong? Because they could tell. I said, got nothing to f***ing record. Oh, and now they were the greatest hustlers. Not only the greatest writers and the greatest this and that, but they were also great hustlers. They liked to see their name on records. Mm-hmm. Because we'd grown up fantasizing about what, you know, who was this on a record? Who was Burt Burns? Who was Bumps Blackwell? Who were these people? Because that were giving us life with their music and this language of, I mean, that's why I may not be locked to it, but I mean, anything hip hop or anything, the whole idea of youth is they don't want to share it with other people. They have to have a private language of their own, and people will realize as we go through this course that we had that. It was American music. I mean, you would have Heartbreak Hotel. We didn't know what a hotel was. We knew what a hotel was, but we certainly weren't staying in them. And Heartbreak was not. But the idea of putting together, like with Presley, written by Otis Blackwell, Heartbreak Hotel, wow, that was life, okay? Mm-hmm. And so Lennon and McCartney come down to the rehearsal. They pull out this song that they claim they're finishing in front of the Stones, when in fact they'd already recorded it with Ringo 10 days before. But they were great hustlers, man. And the moment I heard Brian Jones play a steel guitar on it, I heard a hit, and I left and went to Paris, and I bought a pair of 46-pound Pierre Cardin riding boots that could not be worn in the street, only in the house. They were slippers. Oh. But they came up to here. And that was my life. I don't know what the point of that story was. I do know. The point of that story is to go, you can't, it's going back to your first point. I mean, that line aligns up with nostalgia, and you would be living in the past if you had regrets. Today is, and I josh you not, is the best day of my life, because I'm here. My life is totally blessed. The idea of doing this gig here in Kamloops is wonderful, because as it works out, which it will, I will be the student.
Well, this course sounds so exciting when we've been in conversations about it. Like, we've all gotten quite giddy. So can students expect just, stories, and we're connecting it? Billy had said, deconstructing art imagery, rock imagery and album covers, and is it going to be a dissection or an exploration or both?
It'll be a ramble, I mean, but it'll be a knowledgeable ramble in that there are reasons for everything, and I will attempt to bring some of the things together where, you can tie birth pills with housing, with the shock of being told you won the war, but there seemed to be no evidence of it. The silence of our parents as a result of that. The only difference between that and the Vietnam War is drugs, the parents on drugs. And hopefully it will have, that if you go to be a carpenter or you go to be whatever, that life will make a little more sense. I know that by my doing it, it will simplify my life.
Well, I think it's an interesting way to explore history through music and thinking about, which was one of my questions, about social unrest and how it can inform art, or that music can it be transportation? Can it be transformational? What do we hope to achieve when we listen to music? And hearing those narratives about, just where music's grounded in.
I mean, it can be anything you want it to be. In that time, it kind of simply explained to your friends who you were by the choices you made, and therefore what friends you had. It kind of told your parents to leave you alone.
And there was a real shift, it seems, in terms of the counterculture and the uprising of that in the 60s, and really wanting to push away from the social norms and expectations. And
well, it was only because it was allowed by the government. I mean, you're still living in a very suppressive world where, well, you're also dealing with, once the public started taking drugs, things changed. When it was a private club, it was much, much better.
I guess perhaps if success or fame or to be known is something. So it was interesting just to consider that as...
Consider what?
Just consider where music comes from and all of the different threads and influences, like in terms of Led Zeppelin, and they were very much influenced by,
Are you telling me?
But just, but thinking, I suppose, is it influence or is it appropriation?
You're examining it too much. So
I'm an academic.
Who rise... Oh, okay, sorry, my apologies. Okay, I hope I become a little more academic than I am.